In this video, we'll go ahead and cover the message center within TPS. Now, when I say message, I basically mean notes that can be attached to patient claims. These notes can also be viewed within the appointments when you create appointments for your patients. They can be small one-time notes or reminders to do exams, x-rays, or reports over a certain time frame for a particular carrier. Really anything that you want them to be. Let's go ahead and get started by clicking these little speech bubbles up here to open the messages detail screen. Here we have a list of all the messages that have not been handled yet. You'll notice that next to each message is a response required column and a message handled column. If a message has been marked for a response required, then we need to handle it before it will be removed from the display. Up here at the top, we can see that we have all checked off for patients, providers, dates, and message type. Basically, what this means is that we're viewing all unhandled messages. If I make the screen a little larger, we can see all the messages at once. And down here at the bottom, there's a checkbox that says Include Handled Messages. If I click this, it'll include all messages, whether they've been handled or not. For the most part, though, you're not going to need to look at handled messages, and you're simply needing to concern yourself with the ones that need to be handled. So this is off by default. Here at the top, we can see that if I select a patient, their basic information will appear up here along with some contact information. And over here we have the notes for the actual message. Now this message says patient needs x-ray, and here are some additional notes in relation to that message. In this one, it's just the patient's claim information. Here we have no notes because it's simply a patient is late message, and unless we needed to add specific extras, that's pretty much all we need. If you'd like, you can uncheck these boxes here over at the top left and sort by certain patients, providers, dates of messages, and then the message type. See, I selected month-to-date message. Betsy Blue has no month-to-date messages attached to her claim at all, so they're not going to appear. If I select all again, I'm going to get to see all my messages once more. At the bottom here, we have Add New Message, which will create a new message. Add New Reply, which will create a reply to a message. And then we have the Delete Message and or Response. For instance, if I click Ben's here, click delete, it's gone. That's simple. Let's go ahead and add a new message by clicking the Add New Message button. We get a new window that automatically sets the type to message. We have two types, message and response. In text, we can write anything we want, such as patient does not care for something. So if the patient didn't like a particular aspect of your office, maybe something you guys did or something somebody said, you could tiptoe around it and remind everybody using this note feature. Also, you can click the drop-down to see an entire list of the messages within TPS itself. There are a bunch of messages that come preloaded with the program, but you also have the ability to add your own as you go along. Let's go ahead and do patient needs exam. Here we have a date, which indicates when the message was created, and then the first display date, which is the date that this message will first display on this patient's appointment if you're scheduling them in the appointment book. So perhaps they need an exam, but not for a month. So we're going to put in 09/29/2013. And so the message won't display until this date is reached. Here we can select the patient. Ben is here because Ben was selected in the previous screen. But if I wanted somebody else, I could click the binoculars, find them in my list, and swap them out. Below that, we have the response required checkbox. If this is checked off, a response is required to this message before it's handled and removed from display. Below that, we have the attach to appointment feature. Attaching a message to an appointment makes sure that the message only appears on a specific appointment on a specific column. Let's say you had 3 doctors in the office, and for those 3 doctors, Gail was going to come in and see each one, and because of that, she was scheduled under each column. I need to attach a message for doctor number 1, but not for 2 or 3. To avoid confusion, I can click Attach to Appointment for that particular appointment on the doctor number 1's column, and it will only appear there instead of appearing everywhere that Gail is scheduled. We'll go ahead and walk through that in a little bit when we're assigning messages on the appointment screen. Here we have the check-in alert feature, which will create a pop-up alert when you check the patient in if this is checked off. We're going to leave that blank for now, but we will go over that in a bit as well. Here we can select the priority, with 1 being the lowest 9 being the highest. If you've scheduled a patient who has multiple messages, the message with the highest priority is the one that will appear in the appointment slot. Here we can select the provider for the message and any additional notes. This exam is for this and that. Now the this and that would be specifics about this particular exam that the patient needs, and these notes are basically just extra information that you couldn't fit into the basic text of the message name. Once you're finished, you can hit save or cancel if you didn't want this message to begin with. We'll go ahead and save it. And here we can see in our list that Gale Health now has a new message called Patient Needs Exam that needs to be handled. Will be displayed on 9/29 for provider Jonathan Greenwood and was entered by the new user. Here we can still assign the check and alert feature if we'd like. Now we added a message. Let's go ahead and go over adding a new reply. Let's take this patient is late message for example. We're going to go ahead and reply to it by clicking add new reply here at the bottom. Automatically the type is set to response. We're going to go ahead and type in our response. Patient was sick. And that's why they were late. In fact, they never came in. We're going to handle the message by clicking the checkbox that says message handled. Then we're going to save. Whoops, we forgot our first display date. Anytime TPS has needed information in a particular section, before you try to close it, it will inform you to fill it out before you can save or close that screen. So let's just go ahead and put in today's date. Click save. And then you'll see that the message, patient is late, is no longer attached to Gale, or rather it's been handled so we're not seeing it anymore. If I click include handled messages, here we can see the original message that the patient is late has been handled. And here's the response in a different color that the patient was sick, also handled. Now, when I'm adding a new message, let's say there's a type of message you guys use in the office that wasn't included with the program when you first purchased it, so you're constantly typing in the message. This can get a little tedious. You're constantly typing in response required, selecting the same priority over and over again, etc., etc. To save yourself some time, you can actually add messages to the master list within the program. To do so, simply click the yellow folder here at the top to open the main startup menu, and then under the master files section, find where it says messages. And here we have a list of all the messages already in TPS. Let's go ahead and select a random one. And here we have the entry for this particular message within the program. We can see the type, the description, priority code. Here we have the short code. Now the short code allows you to put in information here, very brief information such as a 2-3 digit code that will actually appear right next to the patient's appointment slot, allowing quick glances to tell you what that appointment might entail. For instance, you may have the insurance follow-up short code in your office be something like 2. Here we have the keyboard shortcut. In TPS, you can save some time by assigning certain messages to the F keys, specifically F2 through F9, and then F11 and 12, as F1 and F10 are reserved for Windows functions. What this allows you to do is within the appointment book, instead of having to click in through a bunch of screens, you can simply hit one of these keys and the message will automatically attach itself to the patient. We'll go ahead and go through how that works in just a little bit. Here we can denote whether the message starts out as handled or if a response is needed. Here we can pick the message status color. Clicking it will open a color palette allowing you to choose from various colors for the message. For instance, if I wanted to do this purplish color here, I could click OK, and then we can see an example of what the color will look like over here on the right. When assigning messages in the appointment book, if I were to assign the insurance follow-up message, the patient's appointment text would turn this purplish color. Here we can put in the extra notes that will automatically appear with this message. Here we can dictate whether the message generates automatically. Now, for a message to generate automatically, there needs to be some code behind it, and here we don't have any code for this particular message, so it gets assigned manually. If I were to go to something like the month-to-date message or the year-to-date message, we can see there's a bunch of code and some notes and explanations describing exactly what's done and how it's generated. If you'd like to create messages that generate automatically, you would need to contact Eon Tech Support for assistance on whether that can be done or not. Here we have the attach to appointment feature, which will automatically attach this message to the specific appointment if necessary. Over here again, we have the check-in alert, which when checked will create an alert that will pop up on the screen when the patient is checked in and they have the message attached. Let's go ahead and add a new message to our master list. In order to do that, go ahead and hit the plus icon here at the top, and you'll get a blank screen. We'll go ahead and create a message right now. Type in the description. We're just going to do a dummy message, so we'll call it sample message. Make it the highest priority. Here we'll put in a shortcode of SM for sample message. Response needed. Now we can assign a keyboard shortcut. An important note though is that if you already have a keyboard shortcut for a particular message, such as F2 is assigned to a particular message, you don't want to reuse this as it can cause trouble when you're trying to use F2 to assign the message. So let's go ahead and open our list real quick. Check out the keyboard shortcuts over here in this column. You can see the F5, 6, 7, and 8 are used, and so is F9. Everything else is fair game. So I'm going to use F2. We're going to make this a darker foresty green. We are going to use the check-in alert feature. And we're not going to do any selection code at this moment or use these other features, so we're just going to close out of here. If I click my messages bubbles up here, click add new message, the text drop down, scroll down, and here we can see sample messages already in my list. Clicking it fills out all the information I already have. I could fill in the display date if I want. Let's go ahead and walk through though using the appointment book keyboard shortcut feature. To do so, we can go ahead and open the appointment book. Scroll down to an appointment, Paula Principal here, and I'll go ahead and hit F2. And just like that, we can see the message is attached to her automatically. Here we can see the message. Any notes will appear over here in the right in this box. We can see the color is appropriate as picked earlier. Here's the shortcode we were talking about, in this case the SM. If I expand the size of the column a little bit more, we can see at the base of the appointment slot that the message has been attached and then the name of that message. Now a nifty feature of the keyboard shortcut is that if I want the message to be handled, I can simply hit the button again and the message is handled and removed from display. Go ahead and unhandle it real quick. Okay, so now about the check-in alert feature. If you check a patient in by double-clicking their appointment, and they have that feature checked off, a pop-up message like this will appear. The message name will appear right here, and it says, would you like this alert to appear the next time you check in for this patient for the appointment? You can select yes, and then that will happen, or no, and it won't. Go ahead and select no for now. And the patient's checked in. And that's about all there is to the Messages Center.